got a conspiracy theory for you. You're going to have to wait for the end of the video. Before that, I'm going to talk about the rate cuts. I'm going to talk about cheap gas and cheap EVs. Everyone and their brother thinks rate cuts are coming. There's a 99% chance the United States is going to cut rates. Look, I've been saying it since the beginning of the year. We're going to get to 2% or less by the end of the year. Now, that's almost guaranteed. Leslie Falconio of UBS Global Wealth Management said, "The question of a cut is no question. The question," she said, "is whether it's a dovish cut or a hawkish cut. Whether it's 0.25 or 0.5. I'm going to say it again. They should have cut sooner. I hate agreeing with the Republicans. But on this point, they're right. They've been wrong about everything else, but they're right about this. Look, the numbers are not that bad in the United States. Economically speaking, it's not that bad. But the citizens feel like it's terrible because of the incessant propaganda they got in the 4 years that Biden was in office. And now the Republicans are in office and they are shitting the bed. Quite literally. Jerome Powell's in damage control. He's got to change the optics of the situation. And a half-point cut, yeah, that would help. And come on. Any inflation problem the United States has is all of their own making. All right, cheap gasoline. It may not seem like there's cheap gasoline out there because it's still elevated at the pump, but the wholesale price of gasoline fell off a cliff yesterday. It's been falling since last weekend. The sales must have been terrible. I want to reiterate, these contracts, like, they're a ways out, okay? Like, this price is for a month out from now. So, like, this increase that happened last weekend, that's why I say it's most likely because of the bombings of the refineries in Russia. Because the fuel that was bought for last weekend was bought like a month before. Anyway, point is this. I said this at the end of the long weekend. The sales must have been terrible because the prices fall off a cliff, and they haven't stopped. They're still falling. Like, it's the end of summer. And so, you know, the big price increases, that's already behind us. And again, you can see this pattern. Every time it gets pushed up, it just falls off a cliff. There are no sales to support these higher prices. And that's happening again. Again, these are all driven by world events. Who knows what's going to happen? But it should remain low for the rest of the year, which of course is great for the inflation rate. Also, we might get cheap cars because the conservative provinces are pushing for it. China delays final ruling in canola dispute with top supplier Canada. All right, so let's backtrack what happened here. The Biden administration put a 100% tariff on cheap Chinese EVs. Terrible idea. Canada followed it up with a worse idea. We did the same thing. China followed up with a 76% tariff on canola. Now the canola producers are crying foul, and Canada's considering dropping the tariff. Because, you know, the US is not our friend anymore. I just want to show you pieces of this incredibly non-biased article. Canada may get cheap Chinese EVs because of what's in your cooking oil. A souring of US-Canada relationships. A contentious election in the US led to the dumbest person on the planet squatting in an office that he's constitutionally barred from holding. Not biased at all. And after the election, the ignoramus in question illegally imposed even dumber tariffs on China and the rest of the world, including Canada. Yada, yada, yada. Canola producers don't like the tariff, and that tariff can go away if we get rid of the EV tariff. I'm excited. I think this is a good idea. I said that from the start, that this 100% tariff on cheap Chinese EVs, terrible idea. Yes, I understand this is a threat to the auto industry, but I think the overall economic benefit will be greater than the harm it causes to the auto industry. And who knows, they might move that production over here. It might be a greater overall net gain than we expect. All right, now my conspiracy theory and that war in Vietnam. I mean Venezuela. I've been saying since the beginning this has nothing to do with drugs. Listen to this little quinky dink. Floating oil facility arrives in Venezuela for China Concord's project. It's a floating refinery, and it's going to go into, and I'm sorry I have to say this with my accent, Lake Maracaibo. Some words I've never actually said in English. They don't even sound right when you say them in English. Anyway, this is from September 4th. And yesterday, U.S. sending 10 fighter jets to Puerto Rico for operations targeting drug cartels. What a coinky dink. And here's my conspiracy theory. Like, this happened, right? They blew that up. Hang on. Just note the shape of this. The wife noted no one was crying for these people. 11 people gone. Everyone's saying it's a crime. But we haven't seen 11 families crying on camera. Very strange. 11 mothers, 11 fathers, 11 brothers and sisters. Like, nobody is shedding a tear for these people. Even if they were narco traffickers, somebody would be on camera upset. So I got to thinking, Are we sure that was Venezuela? Could it have been the Red Sea? The US blew the shit out of a whole bunch of Houthi rebel boats in the Red Sea. These boats have a very distinct shape to them. It's very similar, isn't it? Could it be this never really happened? Remember, Vietnam, the Gulf of Tonkin attack that kicked off that entire war? That never happened. That was all bullshit. Could this all be bullshit? Because the timing of all this stuff, really coincidental.